Hello everyone. So I love this quote. The greatest threat to success is not failure, it is boredom. And again, that comes from Atomic Habits, which I've been reading through. And I just wanted to say that it is true. The greatest threat to success definitely is boredom. Things can be boring from time to time. I really enjoy this. I enjoy making the videos. I enjoy the coding end of it. It's very pleasurable to me, but there are still times of boredom where you just have to kind of push through and keep going. And so if you hit those walls, just know that they're normal, and you just go ahead and push through so that you can get to your goals. I am doing that myself. This is my third video. It is not one that I have the time for, to be honest with you. I had other things I probably should be working on, but I've committed to this, so I'm going to do it. And I think you just have to get that mindset, you're just going to do it. So that is the opening quote that I want to use for today's video. So today we're going to talk about this project that I made. My very first actual real website for JB Jumbos is the company name. And this is the website that I created with using their criteria, things that they wanted to see. And it came out pretty nice. And so we're going to go through the code right now. So this is the result, and then the code behind it is here. So you can see up here that it starts with document type HTML. So all web development starts with this particular doc type. There are other versions of HTML. It's HTML5 now. What it actually stands for is Hypertext Markup Language. Hypertext meaning hyper, it kind of goes everywhere. Text, I think most people know what text is on the screen. Markup language means it was designed by scientists to make formatting of their scientific information a little more readable. So it began really as a very simple thing and has developed over time with the addition of cascading style sheets, which is CSS. And that is, it's a styling method that actually has it's cascading because there's an order of precedence. So the more general something is, it can be preceded by something, or more specific things will take the place of things that are more general. So that's the idea behind that. And so, and also JavaScript. So today we're just going to be talking about HTML and CSS. There is no JavaScript in this particular web page. I am actually going to be starting to implement some JavaScript in my latest project here very quickly. So you have the doc type. Here's your opening tag. HTML almost always has an opening and closing tag. You see it says HTML and it has the kind of arrows on the side. And at the very bottom of it, it'll have a closing, which the closing looks like that. It has the two arrows with the slash there in front of it. So that is what you start your HTML document with. Here's the header. So the header area is for styling. This is where you're going to put your CSS to stylize the information that you're going to be presenting. And also it has things like links to your style sheet, which also helps with styling. If you're going to use this particular style over and over again on different pages in a website, especially if you get like 3 or more, you probably want to go ahead and create a style sheet that has a lot of that already stored on it. I'm not going to go over that today, but it basically has a similar style to what is here. It's just stored in a separate file. So you have to use this, the relationship style sheet. Type is at CSS, and then the reference, which is your link to it, is cssquail2.css. That's the name of the file that it's under. So I'm not going to go over that. Most of the stuff you can find tutorials for to go deeper. I'm just kind of going briefly over what I've done so far. So here's the title. It's JB Jumbos, and what that means is that is actually this part up here. So if you want to have a different title, all you have to do is go back to the actual title here, and you can change it to anything. You can change it to quail egg sales. And you just go ahead and save that, go back over, refresh here, and it'll say quail egg sales. So it just gives you the title on the tab at the top. I'm going to do that real quick and save it again. Okay, so we're going to use the CSS. This is the styling area for the web page. And so a lot of people have done this, and I find it very helpful. One of the first things you want to do is to remove your margin and your padding, and this is the command to do it. The asterisk means everything. All of it starts out as again, it's a broad statement, so it affects everything. So you're going to make all of your margins and your padding 0 pixels. That's what the PX stands for. So the reason you do that is a lot of times they put a default on the outside edge, and that varies from browser to browser. So if you like say, for example, Firefox has a certain amount of pixels it uses for margin and padding, and then you go to Microsoft Edge has its own version of how it does that. And so so it's just an easy way to kind of zero everything out so that your web page is going to look the same no matter which browser you're going to be using. So I can give you an example. I like to use Firefox quite a bit. This is done in Firefox right here, this display. And you can right click and inspect it, and this will show information about your web page. And as you can see, there's a lot of information here. In particular, this right hand side, if you scroll down a little bit, it has what's called your box model. So again, I don't want to go into this too much, but the box model shows your margins, your padding, and then your actual content. So the way that works is your actual content is kind of in this blue area in the middle. Then they have a padding area that kind of pads the outside edge of it. So, for example, this here, the quail bird price list, would be this blue area, right? That's not highlighting, that's what I'm looking at. But in this area here would actually be the padding. That's your padding area. The margin is the distance it is from other objects, and so the margin here would be very small, maybe 10 pixels. The margin to the left, I don't know, maybe 100 pixels. So margins are actually distances from the object to other objects on your page. So that's the basics of the box model. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that. There are amazing resources out there. If you decide you want something like that, leave a comment. Let me know, and I'll see what I can do about that and get that done. So the next piece of this is the container 1, which is I put everything into a single container. I'll clean up a little bit. All the information from my file stored in this, and so the only styling I needed, because I use specific styling for all of the components within it, the actual display is going to be a flex. So there's 3 main styles. There's an absolute style, which is the old-fashioned way of doing it. You would go ahead and set everything up individually, which takes a long time. I did my very first web page that way. It took a long time. Didn't come out very nice, to be honest with you. That's why I'm not using it for my example. But then the second method that they came out was Flexbox. And so Flexbox is great if you're going to put things into like columns. For example, this is the perfect website for that. We have 3 columns, right? Let me close that out. So there's 3 columns, right? And then there's this top piece here. But really it's just 3 columns is the main portion of the site. So Flexbox is very good for that. And after that, they came out something called CSS Grid, and that actually breaks things down. You can have pretty much anything you want. It'll have different sections. Again, I'm not going to go into it a lot, but it's the latest way of doing it. So most modern web development that I've seen has been done using CSS Grid. Sometimes they'll put a Flexbox within the grid, but the grid really has supplanted everything else. It's very, very useful. So if you're going to learn how to do the layout for your website, I would look first to the grid. So I'm going to make a note here. I will put a link to a tutorial on CSS Grid, Flexbox, and Flexbox. The other method is old and I wouldn't even use it, but Flexbox and CSS Grid are still good alternatives to do that. So this is the styling for container 1, and all I have here is I put a border of 1 pixel, and it's a white, basically an off-white solid border, and the padding is 10 pixels. So here we are, container 1. So you can see that it has this kind of white border around the outside edge of it, and yeah, anyway, it's 1 pixel and it's solid. So if I go ahead and I change that to, say, I don't know, let's go extreme here, put 5 pixels. See how it goes ahead and thickens up that border around the outside edge. Go back to 1 and save it. And then the padding is 10 pixels. Again, that's the distance from the different objects. So let's see if I change that to 100 pixels. it creates more distance between the objects and the outside edge. So it's applying it to everything within the container. So all the stuff here is in the main container, so it creates bigger distances. Do that. So that is kind of how that works. I think I'm going to stop there for now. Make a little note here that I stopped here. And I'll try to put start here. That's probably better, start here. So I hope that's helpful. Yeah, I'll start getting there to look at that in tomorrow's video. So I wanted to end this with something called the Goldilocks principle. Again, I want to begin with something encouraging. This is a really interesting idea. So the way to stay motivated is you don't want to have it be too hard, like lots of failure, or be too easy. You want to hit this middle zone. Typically this middle zone is about 104% of what you're doing right now. So if something's fairly easy and you just push yourself a little bit and you continually do that, improving day by day by day, so that 4% kind of compounds, you're going to get better over time is the idea. So this Goldilocks zone is the perfect zone to be in. If you're kind of doing this 90% or 80% or less, it starts to, you start to go into boredom, and then you want to quit whatever you're working on. And then if it gets too hard and you constantly fail, nobody likes to fail over and over again, so you don't want to continue down that path as well. So anyway, hopefully that encourages you guys that it's good to push yourselves just a little bit. Keep it simple, maybe even 5 or 10 minutes a day to begin with, and then over time, maybe a little longer. Find different ways to do things, but I would suggest when you start doing web development, don't try to kill it. Don't try to do half an hour to an hour or even 2 hours. Initially, unless you're a very disciplined person, maybe it's like 10 minutes a day. And say I'm going to do 10 minutes, and when you sat down for 10 minutes, you're like, oh man, maybe I could go for an hour or two. I don't know. I've done that many times. I sat down and think, oh, I'll do it for just 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to mess around with some stuff. And pretty soon, an hour later, I'm into it, and it's always enjoyable when I'm done. I'm really grateful that I've never regretted sitting down even for 10 minutes and working on something. So hope that's all helpful. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. So hey, take care, and I'll see you next time.